So Kathoupanishad, we have to read 10, right? Yeah. And then we had explained, but we had not read Swamiji's commentary. So Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahaihi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. So Meena ji, you want to tell page number? It's correct, right? We are supposed to read first.
Yeah. And 285. 285.
Any volunteers to read? Sushil ji, would you like to read, Sushil ji? So just before you begin, this was, we had discussed in detail that how when the sense organs, mind and intellect become very, very calm and quiet, that is the highest state. It means you have reached the samadhi. Basically, that's what it is, yeah.
When the five organs of knowledge are at rest, together with the mind, and when the intellect ceases functioning, becomes calm, that state they call the highest state. Here we have the clearest exposition as far as language and intellect can go of the state of eternal auspiciousness experienced. When the soul meets the soul, the samadhi, when the five sense organs are perfectly controlled, naturally the mind is devoid of almost 90% of its activities. What little field of mind has now to get itself agitated in is constituted of stored away memories and self-created imaginations. When even these agitations are controlled, we reach the state explained in the mantra, the state when the sense organs are at rest along with the mind. Even this is not sufficient, for at this state, the intellect will be throbbing, though of course it will be very feeble with its own ideas and ideals. The Upanishad wants us to reach a state where the sense organs, the mind and intellect are all at rest. And this state is defined by the Shruti as the state of vitally experiencing the supreme absolute reality, the self.
So here Swamiji is talking about the same thing that we had discussed in detail, that how do you lead to that. So he was just saying that how slowly everything has to quieten down. So you start with this sense control and all that, and then 90% is gone, and then mind also becomes quiet. And we saw the whole process, that how you have to withdraw from the world and put your mind in the self. Otherwise, it's not going to become quiet. So both the processes together will lead you to this state when, even inside there will be old expression will start getting roasted and things like that, So all that we have learned in Bhagavad Gita, everything comes together over here at the final stage. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, have we not, almost every one of us, experienced a state wherein our sense organs, mind and intellect are not at play? In sleep, we all know that neither our indriyas, nor our manas, nor our buddhi comes to interfere with our peaceful rest, with the endless death. Let me read it again. In sleep, we all know that neither our indriyas, nor our manas, nor our buddhi comes to interfere with our peaceful rest, with their endless death dances. Then are we not experiencing the reality during all the occasions when we are plunged in deep sleep? If the condition of sleep the condition of reality, is the Upanishad asking us to be nothing more than the idlers sleeping round the clock all days of our lives, thus as the skeptics.
So we went through it that, hey, when all these three things are quiet in deep sleep, so are they saying that that's what it is? So he's saying that we saw that actually it is, they only use that as an example to tell us that it's possible, that state. But the only difference is that everything is quiet and instead of sleeping you're awake. So that is the difference between samadhi and sleep. And Swamiji actually in the last paragraph or last but one explains beautifully what is the difference. But he says skeptics, because nobody can explain, you have to experience it yourself, that thing. So when they explain it, they might give a sleep example, and then some people skeptics are always going to jump on it and say, hey, what does that mean that you keep sleeping? Sometimes people say like that also, no, jo samadhi mein hai, they are of no use of the world. They're just sitting and meditating. What are they doing? And then our teacher used to say that those people who are in samadhi, unki wajah se ye dunya chal rahi hai, because they send such peaceful vibrations and all that it keeps the balance. So it's up to you how you want to look at it.
Such and other similar questions would rise up in the mind of the uninitiated when they superficially read the mantra now under discussion entirely in itself. In fact, this mantra has no independent existence without total knowledge we have so far acquired from the learned discourses of Lord Death. We must read stanza specifically in the light of the previous one.
So he's just saying, this was a paragraph finished, but anyway, go ahead, because he's just saying that we should not look at it superficially, but go ahead.
There's a lot of difference between sleep and the state of self meeting the self. The condition of samadhi is often explained to us as something very near sleep, because living as we are in very gross plane of consciousness, the God-men of the Upanishads could not explain to us their transcendental experiences, but in terms of our own world of limited experiences. The nearest state they could find, which man is enjoying, and which can be favorably compared with the state of samadhi, is sleep. In the sense, while we are sleeping, our sense organs, mind and intellect are at rest. The comparison is only so far as it explains this common similarity.
So we saw that, right? The only common similarity is as though three things as read, but actually the state is totally different. Yeah.
During moments of God consciousness, the individual transcends his mind and intellect to reach the land of the eternal consciousness, while man in sleep has only folded up his mind, intellect, and sense organs for the time being and finds himself reaching the dark land of unconsciousness. The one in sleep is drowned in the darkness of ignorance. The one in samadhi is in the sunshine of the knowledge. The sleeper is a slave in a negative living, while the knower is a master in positive existence. These ideas are hinted in the unwritten space between the above two stanzas.
So nobody can explain better than Swamiji the contrast, right? That way, saying one is sunshine of knowledge, other one is a darkness of experience. Ignorance. So now you know the difference. But last paragraph.
In order to delve deep into our own bosom and light up the match intuition, so that it may flare up and blow off the veiling walls of the mental and intellectual disturbances, and thus finally reveal the self unto self. What exactly is the process to be pursued? This question is answered in the following mantra.
So the Swamiji called this, how do we recognize the self? By intuition. Remember we discussed that. So he's just saying that the final faculty in us that has to just flare up is that intuition, and this is the process that how you reach that state. So that's what it is. Any question or comment? Or anybody wants to add anything? There's a lot of masala, right? How to reach that final state. He's given the whole path now. Practicing and doing all those is our job now.
Umaji, what is self merging into self?
So, that final state, everybody describes it in different way. This is one way to describe it because it's a personal journey. So it's like, sometimes even if I may see something in the physical world, suppose if I go and see some beautiful sunset or something, if I have to describe to somebody else, I don't know how to do it. So I might use some language. So this is one of the language. And the self, what was the sentence you said? Self, reveal self into the self. Is that what you're saying? Prabhakarji? What exact words did you ask me?
Self-merging with self.
Yeah, self-merging with self. So it's like river and ocean. That's the best example you can come in the physical world. That, it's both are H2O, but river merging into the self becomes the self. Recognizes what it is, and whichever way you want to look at it. It's just limitation of language that they are doing, but when different people give us different examples, maybe it will gel in our head what it is, And in the end, Krishna Bhagwan is going to say, hey, you experience it yourself. So until we do, we won't know so we'll have to be satisfied with just these different things. I don't know. I hope I didn't confuse you further what I'm trying to say, Prabhakarji. If somebody else wants to jump in and say something.
I think very simply it is explained on page 287, the paragraph that begins, there is a lot of difference between sleep and the state of self meeting the self. And then the very next sentence, the condition of samadhi. So I thought sleep and state meeting self is condition of samadhi. I thought that is what it is the condition of samadhi.
What I thought, I'm thinking of Jiva and Brahman.
Yeah, of course, Jiva. So Jiva is more a fictitious thing. That's what the way he explains that actually तो एक ही है मगर वो माया की वजह से हम लोग को difference दिखाई देता है and the whole world comes about, right? In the end, actually, it is only Bhagwan only.
It is only Brahman.
Yes, and then once you realize that, yeah.
That's what I understand.
Yes, that's what it means, self-meeting the self.
I think also it is, when you just dissolve yourself.
Yeah, I mean, those are the limitation of language,
so there are different languages to say the same thing,
Same,
actually.
yeah.
The main thing is experiencing.
So,
and when you experience, then un log bolte hain gunge ka gur.
How will you explain? Yes. True. So all of whatever you said is true. And when we do the next verse, Prabhakarji, in the commentary and all that, and Tejomayananji gave that whole idea that that once somebody has merged in that state, and when they still experience the world, they're not going to forget about it. That merging is at a very, very base level. जैसे हम लोग intellectually जानते हैं, लेकिन फिर भी we get disturbed in the world, right? Because we actually forget. Or we still don't believe in it 100% or something, If we did, we are not going to have a problem.
Can I understand it in a way that the part is merging into the whole?
So what is merging into own?
I am a part.
Yeah.
And part is
pot.
merging.
Yeah.
Pot is merging.
So what they are trying to tell you here, Prabhakar, suppose if we take the comparison of a pot and mud, right? Pot is always mud only. It can never be other than mud, because if it's not mud, it won't be a pot. So it just has given a little shape, and you don't have to physically merge with the mud to know that you are mud. That's all it's saying. So when we talk about merging, see, we are talking about Jivan Mukti. We are not talking about after death or something, right, over here, or in Bhagavad Gita. While you are living, while you are in this world, you understand that merging part. That's what they're trying to say in the meditation.
They give example of the salt doll.
Yes, that's a very good one. Go ahead and explain that salt doll. That's a very good example.
Yeah, the salt doll, when it goes into the ocean, which already is salty, and it just gets dissolved in there. It doesn't find anything different in there. It becomes one with this original form. And that's that's the example they give. I don't know whether I can explain that.
No, that's a very good example. And the way you dramatize it, that the salt doll one day said, hey, I want to find where I came from. So somebody said, go to the ocean. You will find out where you came, because salt comes from ocean, right? So the salt doll starts walking. As it goes into the ocean, it melts and becomes it. That's what the example is. So true. I think that these are contemplative things. And you just take all these different people's words, ideas and all, and you contemplate, and then you'll get more and more deeper into it, what it means.
One thing, sorry, go ahead.
Anilji, go ahead, then we'll meet.
One thing that I found very interesting was, it's a state like deep sleep, but instead of sleeping, you are awake.
Right, correct. That's exactly what they said, that because everything is at rest, but you are fully awake.
So
nothing is disturbing
you. Everything in your, all the senses, mind, intellect, everything has to be quieted.
And the reason it is quiet, because you have understood that just a game. Yeah. It's not real.
Is that also called knowing the difference between real and unreal?
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly. See, Tejomayanand used to put it very nicely. He said, it is a relative reality over here, but we give too much importance to it.
Yes.
We make it a life and death, but the more you learn about what real is, this is just a temporary play. और वो कितनी सारे कबीर के दोहे वगैरह है ना, कि ये दुनिया तो ऐसे मतलब 1 मिनट में खत्म हो जाती है वगैरह वगैरह, है ना. अपने को लगता है इतना लंबा टाइम है, मगर मतलब कॉस्मिक टाइम के हिसाब से तो कुछ भी नहीं है. Right? I mean, what is 50 to 100 years is nothing. Or look at a dog. A poor dog lives only 14 years. उसकी पूरी लाइफ खत्म हो जाती है उसमें. और मच्छर, I heard मच्छर की 24 hours होती है. मच्छर के पर्सपेक्टिव से बहुत लंबा दिन हो, बहुत लंबी लाइफ होगी शायद. I don't know. We have to become a मच्छर to know how he feels. But from our perspective, it's boom, gone in one day. So it's very relative, all this time business, and what you're saying is right. That everything, this subject is so vast. You can look at it from many different angles. But I like that, Sir Priyananji's example. He always talks about that gold and gold ornaments. The gold ornament cannot say, hey, I want to get rid of the gold. Then it won't remain an ornament. So that's what that merging part. It is always a gold only. It just has that shape. That's why we call it different names. The same way we have all different forms and names and this and that, but in essence, it is the same only. You can call that as a merging. Understanding it at a very deep level and never getting away from that knowledge, that's called merging in the Vedantic language. And that's why they use the words in Bhagavad Gita, man of steady wisdom, sthita prajna, that he's fully established in it all the time. Okay, I'm going to go to the next verse. Let's see. Verse 11. Tam yogamiti manyate sthiram indriya dharanam apramatastада bhavati yogo hi prabhava pyayo. Tam is that, yogam iti as yoga, manyate they call or regard as yoga, sthiram firm, indriya dharanam control of the senses, apramataha. This is a very important word, and Tejomayanand gave 2 different explanations, and I think Shankaracharya must have had a huge commentary on this word, because this is kind of a central thing in this over here. And we'll see here it says free from all I don't know this word. Maybe Miraji's got off the camera. I don't know how to pronounce this word. Means all the differences of mind. Vagaries of mind. Tada is then, bhavati becomes yoga e. For the yoga is prabhava apyayo, grows and decays. Sounds very complicated, but I'll try to explain the best way. They are talking about, what is called actual yoga, another definition of yoga over here. And then this apramatta is, how you're supposed to deal with your mind. It deals with that, this verse. And then the yoga for people who are not completely established in it, sometimes it is working, sometimes it's not working. It kind of goes away and, it's like meditation, acha hua, nahi hua kind of thing. You vacillate between the two, इससे या दूसरी ढंग से बोलते थोड़ी सी झलक मिली ब्राह्मण की फिर गायब हो गया. Something like that, पूरा अभी माया का वेल हटा नहीं है. So many different ways you can look at this verse. So what they're talking about is that the state, where the indriyas and intellect have become totally still. And then, Tejomanaji was explaining that Bahya Indriya and Antar Indriya. Bahya Indriya is the sense organs, Antar Indriyas are मन and बुद्धि. सब quiet हो गया. इसका detail मतलब क्या हुआ कि no perception is taking place, no oscillation of mind, कोई विचार नहीं आ रहे हैं, संकल्प विकल्प नहीं हो रहा है, judging नहीं हो रही है, deciding नहीं हो रही है, everything becomes still. So when everything becomes still, then you are connected to that consciousness. Or another very good example that I like is, they say ki if suppose there is a pond, and I want to see the substratum of the pond, base. So the pond two things have to happen. One is the water has to be still, and it has to be completely clean. And then I can see the bottom. So now compare that to our mind. All the dirt of the mind has to go. Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Mad, Matsarya. And then mind has to be still, no thoughts in it. Then you can see. That's what this is when they're talking about this state. It's hard for us to imagine because our mind never stopped chattering. But all the practice is for that only. So this form state is called yoga also. But because yoga के इतने सारे definition दिए हुए हैं. सब कुछ मिला के योग होता है. Yoga means actually joining with the higher, right? So in Bhagavad Gita, there will say samatvam yoga uchyate, evenness of mind is called yoga. Yoga sukarma sukaushalam, yoga is dexterity in action. All that also fits everything. Here नया ही definition दिया है कि जब सब कुछ शांत हो जाता है उसको योग बोलते हैं, because obviously then you are connected. That's why they say tam योग इति मन्यते स्थिराम इंद्रियाणाम. जब सारी इंद्रियां स्थिर हो गई है, इंद्रिया मतलब मन और बुद्धि भी इसमें आ गया है. That's why he told about inner and outside indriya. This is called yoga. So what Tejomanaji was bringing some Bhagavad Gita back in here now, and you will remember this verse. So he was saying that this is a very peculiar kind of yoga they're talking about. Why he's called it peculiar? Because on one hand it's saying it's yoga, but it starts with viyog. Because you are separating yourself from all the negative and all the, what you call dukkha sanyoga viyoga. Do you remember that? In Bhagavad Gita, dukh se sanyog ho gaya hamara. अब उसका हम वियोग कर रहे हैं. That is yoga. It's a very complicated way of, it's like eating the food like this and like this is doing, but it's just making you think. That's all it's doing. So he's saying that Tejomanaji was explaining that what is a process that actually our Swarup is Chaitanya Swarup, Anand only, Sat Chit Anand. But due to ignorance, we get identified with the mind, buddhi and body, like mind, intellect, body, mind and intellect. We get identified with that. That's how, and we become extrovert. We saw our indriyas are extrovert, and that jiva is born. So as though there are two entities, Atma and Jiva. Okay, that's why we have to practice yoga, because this ignorance has come in the middle. So technically, because of ignorance, the jiva got associated with the sorrow. Or if you think about it, all the sorrow happens because we identify with the mind, body and intellect. Okay, so and that's why it's in Bhagavad Gita it's called dukkha sanyog. Dukh se jud gaye hum. तो उसको दुख संयोग बोल दिया. So now this person who is associated with all the dukkha slowly has to withdraw his attention from this condition. Ekdam se to hoega nahi, but with Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasan, we are doing it, and then absorb itself to the self. So, truly speaking, there is no Atma Tattva only. The second entity, Jiva, finally dissolves. Like I think Manju was saying that, you dissolve the Jivahood. And so that's why it's called this whole thing he was talking, it's a peculiar kind of yoga. On one hand it's yoga, but actually uska process is viyog. That's what he was saying. Okay. And when you finally merge, तो वो दुख का कारण भी खत्म हो जाता है उसमें. That's why the person gets established in it. जड़ से खत्म कर देता है उसको. Somebody's I think okay, Manju's okay. Okay, so what thing to remember over here is that I am that Chaitanya Swaroop, and once I in that state, and that's called the yoga finally. Okay, and then let's look at this word apramatta. I was telling you this is a very important word, and he's saying apramattam tada bhavati. So what does it become? The technical word apramatta, if you go just by the word meaning, it means alert and vigilant. That's what the actual meaning is of this word. No sleepiness, inadvertentness, no tamas kind of, no pramada in there. But Shankaracharya ji was explaining that here in this whole scenario over here, what is happening over here, that the person who is practicing the yoga, means he is still living a little bit in ignorance, usko zarurat hai ye apramatta ki. Usko vigilant hone ki zarurat hai, usko alert hone ki zarurat hai. Because jo practice kar raha hai, ek baar jo merge ho gaya, usko to zarurat hi nahi hai, because his final goal is reached. Right? So this apramatta is connected to that. So he was just reminding us that how Chinmayanand ji said that the mind and in the meditation, your goal should be peaceful, alert and vigilant. Why alert and vigilant? Because some other thoughts might come, but the Krishna Bhagwan gave the remedy. Abhyas karte jao, wapis, bring it back your mind. That's why alert and vigilant. And then this is the practice you need while doing that. But there's another meaning is this. कि वो जब इसमें बोला ना अप्रमत्तम तदा भवति, वो अप्रमत्त हो गया, उसका मतलब ये होता है जो मर्ज हो गया और द फाइनल स्टेट जिसको मिल गई या जिसको समाधि जिसको एक्सपीरियंस कर लिया उसने समाधि में, उसके बाद जब वो वापस जुड़ता है ना संसार से, he doesn't get affected by the sansar. That's what this word means. So it has both the meanings that while practicing you have to be alert and vigilant, and the other one is that after you merge, the world doesn't affect you. Both the meanings are good. Let's see what the other point. So he was saying that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna Bhagwan told Arjun that once you know this truth, you will never get deluded again. So this apramatta is that hey, once you know that, I was talking about that Sitta Pragna ke Lakshan, the same thing. This is the nature of this knowledge, and in the worldly sense, I can say that once you know how to read, you cannot become illiterate again. So once you know it so well, if some words come in front of you, you are going to read. So this Satchidananda Swarup is never lost. Okay, and then the last part it says is yogo hi pravaha apyayo. So that means that this practitioner, if it is not seasoned practitioner, the yoga sometime will be rise and sometime it will dissolve, means sometime it will be successful, sometime it will be not, until you reach that state. So it is going to be up and down, and that's going to be part of meditating, where we should not get disturbed, but know that it can happen, but continue it and all, and then finally you get established. Because what he was trying to explain to us, Tejomayanand ji, on one hand they are saying that it goes up and down and it लय हो जाता है and कभी उभर जाता है. Reality में आत्मा is not going anywhere. Okay, it's my own self only. But if I have not gained that final state, in my ignorance it might feel that way, that it is going away, but actually it is not going away. It is our own problem. So we have to properly understand that this at the deeper level, and then abide in the truth. So he was just reminding us that, hey, Atma doesn't need meditation. The realized master doesn't need meditation or any practice. We are the one who need it because we are hanging in the middle. That's all. So the next mantra is going to talk about Shraddha. See, what is happening in Kathoupanishad, they have given us the highest knowledge. Now they are just telling us the path and different aspects of it, so that when we practice our thing, it helps us when we know all different paths. And that's why next verse is going to talk about Shraddha, because without Shraddha, you cannot move forward. Because it's something we have not seen, we don't know. But all the saints and sages, if they are saying it, we have to believe in it. So this verse was a little bit difficult one, but I hope that I tried my best. Any question, comment? Okay, any volunteers to read? Meena ji, you want to read then?
The firm control of the senses they regard as yoga. Then the yogin becomes free from all the vagaries of the mind, for the yoga is subject to growth and decay. The method...
Okay. It froze, Meena ji.
Method of practice, so I don't know what's happening with the connection. So
maybe somebody else can read it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sushil ji, are you closer to the... No, Sushil ji already read, right? Sorry. Anil ji can read it.
I can read.
Yeah, Shireen, great. Fantastic. Read.
Should I restart?
Yeah, the firm control. Yes.
The firm control of the senses they regard as yoga. Then the yogin becomes free from all the vagaries of the mind, for the yoga is subject to growth and decay. The method of practice pursued by a student of Vedanta in order to develop his intuitive power, and with that to come to realize ultimately his own self and thus become immortal, is being explained here. The process of self-development and self-perfection is yoga. If truly practiced, yoga promises us its goal to be Godhood. Here, the scripture clearly exclaims that yoga means, in its practical application, the firm control of the sense organs. A certain amount of sense control comes as a matter of habit to one who has come to live the discrete rules of decent life. Such an individual will not incite the barbarian in him to walk out of his form, to abscond or to seduce, although his mind may get tempted by the charms of his neighbor.
So what Swamiji is trying to do over here is, he's trying to say that what constitute the yoga practice. It's a very vast thing, right? But there are some basic components in it that everybody has to do. And even in Bhagavad Gita, the whole thing started with, how do I start this? The first thing they said is sense control. Uske bina yoga possible hi nahi hai. So, and that's why Krishna Bhagwan said the person who sleeps too much or doesn't sleep enough or eats too much, uske liye yoga becomes, he cannot do yoga because it has to be balance. So many things come under. And if you look at that analogy of the chariot, if you want the whole chariot to move properly, तो सबसे पहले घोड़ों को कंट्रोल करना पड़ेगा, तभी तो लगाम खींच के रखते हैं, right? So all those fits over here, sense control से ही सब कुछ start होता है. And then Swami, in my book, at least these couple of paragraphs, he must have seen horrible situations where people had no sense control. And so in the West, we see that a lot. Like you go to the bars and go to all any of these, oh my God, people just act like hooligans. They just have no control about it. Even how much food they will take, koi, buffet होएगा तो इतना ढेर इतना खा के तो कोई भी बीमार हो जाएगा. Well, you know that if you want a healthy life, you got to be sense control at all the 5 senses. So he's going to comment some pretty strong stuff. Go ahead, Shireen.
An individual is helped much in his self-control, no doubt, if the spirit of his age is one that follows the dharmas. If we are finding today a greater dose of barbarism and cruelties among our children who are coming out of the universities than it was among our forefathers of a couple of generations back, we know for certain the source of the low negativities among the modern educated class. These children, innocent victims of the spirit of the age, are not to be condemned at all for the life of sensations they are seeking or the voluptuous excess they are tempted to enjoy. If they are to be condemned, much more shall we condemn ourselves, for certainly we have, through our own commissions and omissions, contributed much to the poisonous spirit of the present. Flouting truth and breaking the codes of morality and ethics in conscious acts of our own arrogances, we have allowed the spirit of our times to fall so low from its ideal peak to reach the lowest depths of today's desperations.
What Swamiji is trying to tell over here is it is not these people's fault, it is a whole society. And for many generations, our own omissions and commissions, because what we see is what we truly, slowly it have come to that. Because the whole society is falling and everybody's partially responsible for it. It's just not, hey, when we see people doing bad stuff, there's a lot more goes behind it. And we have seen, kabhi koi criminal से का interview लो ना, उसका इतना difficult childhood होता है, abused and this and that, then they turn into criminals. See what I'm trying to say? He's just saying that the whole society contributes to this kind of behavior. Everybody has to put in their part. So if individual has to take responsibility to become better, then the society becomes better. Go ahead, Shireen.
Fortunately, in the Radhika period, they maintained a strict code of the dharmas.
Sanatan
was the spirit of that age, and the descendants for a long time, till the recent present, have been by a superfine system of communal living and through an ordered and rigid system of social values, trying to keep up the spirit of Sanatana Dharma. If there is yet a greater dose of individual inner joy experienced by the millions in our Indian villages, in spite of their poverty, starvation, death, and disease, we have only to thank the ever-blessing, time-tested system of happy living called the Sanatana Dharma. Compared with a modern citizen in the greatest of our cities, New York, we can definitely say that, mentally speaking, the poor Indian what is it?
Rayot is a farmer. It's a fancy word for a farmer, yeah.
Oh, okay. Any day enjoying a greater share of inward peace and joy than his American brother. Santi is a product of contentment and not the ghastly child born of sensuous flirtations with sense objects.
It's a Shanti, the way they put Sanskrit, so it sounds, but basically saying Shanti. All he's trying to say, just by having lot of material things around us and all, you don't become happy. That's all he's saying. That you need dharma to be happy. You need some code of conduct. And if you think about it, all the religions, they're nothing but trying to put people on the right path. You go to church, you go to mosque, you go to mandir, or go anywhere so that you stay online. You connect with the higher, do the right thing, do the sense control, do whatever, help people, charity, anything that you say to keep online. And he was just saying that if you compare the West and the East, some villages may have nothing, but they're still decent people. They do, have some values and they look happy. And then you go to New York, they have everything. But because they don't have the code of conduct, no dharma, so chaos. And we know that so many people who have so much name, fame, they end up committing suicide and become so miserable. He's just bringing out that point.
Apologies for this digression. The amount of sense control a man comes to enjoy depends much upon the spirit of the very age he is living in. In the penultimate state of self-development, the individual gains more and more control over his sense organs through his practice of self-control. Certainly, the final and total control over the indriyas comes only from the moment of full realization of the self. Param drishtva
Nivartante. Yeah.
Nivartate.
Nivartante. So he's saying that you start with the sense control. एकदम complete तो end में होएगा, but the practice वही है और कुछ नहीं है. Or when you say sense control, when you start with the sense control, automatically the mind and intellect and all that slowly will be. So जब घोड़े control में होंगे, and then there is a better chance of the chariot, and then obviously you have to purify your mind further and further. But the first line is that. And then you continue with that meditation practices and all that, and the karma yoga, upasana, and all those things that will keep purifying your mind, and you will have a complete self-control. That's what he's saying.
Yoga to a student of Vedanta starts with and is continued in self-control. To him, the extreme development of his powers of concentration through a successful achievement in the control of his sense organs is the greatest of tapas.
Not bad at all, Shireen. You have learned in Sanskrit now. Ekagram paramam tapaha. Yeah, means concentration of mind is the highest tapas. And we know in the world also, if you want to achieve something, we need concentrated mind. You're not going to achieve. So here in spiritual world also, it's the same thing.
Control of the sense organs does not mean merely the negative idea of taking a sense organs away from their sense objects. This is only half the battle. Success can be achieved in self-control only when our minds are fixed firmly in steady concentration and meditation upon the Atma.
So this is a very powerful statement. Because if you start meditating but you don't know your goal, you will not be successful. So he's saying that withdrawing but placing it in the self. That's why I think the Bhagavad Gita, the chapter 6 of how to meditate, you have a very much higher chance of progressing. Rather than just, keep controlling and then, go in some void or something. I don't know what that feels like. But here there is such a positive thing. Hey, absorb yourself in the self. And now Krishna Bhagavan already started telling us what the self is. All that whole thing about the verse 4, Bhumi, Rapo, Nalo, come, and all that.
At this time of his self-evolution, the yogin becomes careful and does not allow his mind to fall back into its usual ruts of sensuous thinking. For a true student of Vedanta knows fully well that unless he is very careful, the control gained over his senses might, at any time, get lost in the severe temptations of passing moments, especially so when the yogin lives in the same accustomed plane of sense objects. Shruti kindly warns in his own words how easy it is even for the highly developed students of yoga to get themselves lost in the midst of their own successes, even for a moment they become careless. Indeed, the path of knowledge, dangerous but the shortest, is a razor path wherein a slip means total annihilation.
I know, we should not get discouraged. All he's telling you that you have to be, that's why Swamiji said that you have to be vigilant and careful, because you can reach a high state and then you can slip again because the temptations are there in the world. And we have so many Puranic stories that the falana rishi, कोई अप्सरा आ गई तो वो फिसल गया, फिर उसको काफी फिर से तपस करना पड़ा, and all that. Finally, they do reach, but it's a slippery road, he's just saying. And that's why they call razor's edge, Shurasya Dharya. We saw it from our Kathoupanishad, they mentioned that. Basically, it is like for an uncontrolled, it becomes Shurasya Dharya. The more control we have, the better chance. Just telling you different aspects of the practice, basically. And, like the path is laid out and all the different roadblocks, obstructions, or kya galat ho sakta hai, जैसे अपना GPS होता है ना, तो वो फलानी जगह मत जाना, वहाँ एक्सीडेंट है. You know, something like that. So this is a road map over here for meditation.
So knowledge and practice are two different things altogether.
Yes, and those are both are required.
Knowledge without practice is useless.
Yes, you are absolutely right. That's why I think Bhagavad Gita is such a complete Shastra. It has, Brahma Vidya and Yoga Shastra. Shastra means method, science of yoga. Exhaustively mentioned.
Practice without knowledge is also quite useless.
That's what she said. Yeah. Either way, both you need. Both.
Other way also I agree. Yeah.
Yes. Because if you don't practice, it's a bookish knowledge.
Yes.
Even in the world, okay, I read how to make some dish and I keep reading and I can recite and tell 10 other people how to make this dish, but I've never made it. So, yeah. True. Whatever you guys said, that's a conclusion. Yes. Any other comment? Question? People are becoming more and more meditative now. We are on that subject. Okay, then I can close over here, and then still somebody has any question, we can take it up. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kashchit Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.